So, I have a surprise for you. I actually brought Ida B home with me. So, I'm going to continue so we can wrap up the ending of Ida B together. Thought I'd read it outside, hence that Ida B loves nature and loves to be outside. Chapter 26. On Wednesday at recess, Miss W sat down next to me on the steps, just like always. Just like always, she asked me, anything you want to talk about, Ida? No, ma'am, I said right away, because that's what I always did. And thank goodness Miss W always stayed for a few extra minutes, because I was thinking that if I didn't talk to somebody pretty soon, all that stuff I'd been holding inside of me was going to burst out screaming, bursting through my outsides, so it could get some air and find an ear. There would be little screaming pieces of Ida B splattered across windows and in kindergartner's hair and landing on top of you're not supposed to eat them outside sandwiches. Miss Washington, I said. Yes, Ida. Both of us were looking straight ahead, like nobody would think we were talking. Did you ever do something that seemed right at the time, but later it seemed kind of wrong? Miss W was waiting, like she was letting me have plenty of space to finish, just in case something important came into my head a little late. Yes, I have, Ida, she said after some moments, and we both let the comfort of that settle into me for a bit. Then I asked, did you ever do something because you were really mad, so mad and sad, that you just had to try something to make things better? And it seemed perfect at the time, but then later it felt a little wrong. This time, Miss W waited even longer. But now, instead of liking her waiting, I was wondering if she'd realized that maybe she didn't want to be sitting so close to somebody like me. Yes, I have, she finally said, and when I peeked at her face out of the corner of my eye, she looked sad. Now I took a pause because the big one was ready to come rolling out. But I was afraid to say it out loud, so someone in the world would hear it and know it, and it would be real. My insides were still rumbling, and I knew I needed to say it, or next thing I'd be flesh and bone confetti raining down on the schoolyard. Did you ever do something because you were so angry and upset? You were just boiling inside, and you had to let it out. And it seemed like a good idea at the time. But after a while, it didn't feel so good. And what you did, well, it, it, and now I was looking real hard at the blue house across the street, not even seeing a bit of Miss W at the edge of my eyeball. It made people cry, and they think you're mean. My voice was catching and cracking, so I let it rest. And you didn't really want to hurt anybody, I went on. You just wanted the bad things to stop. I took a deep breath and looked down at my shoes, and everything else that needed to be said tumbled on out of me. And after you did it, you didn't tell anybody else. And now you feel like a sink that's all backed up and full of dirty water and cat hair and old whiskers. And if somebody doesn't get the plunger, that nasty old water is going to overflow. Now, that was the longest question I'd ever asked, and it took me a minute to catch my breath when I was through. And as soon as those words were out of me, I had a better feeling than I had in a long time. And that space in my chest, my heart used to fill, was feeling warmer and a bit more crowded than it had in a long time, and I liked it. But I was also still scared about what Miss W might be thinking. I was looking at her sideways, worrying a lot. I watched her put her elbows on her knees. Then she put her hands together so they hugged each other. Her head dropped down, and she pushed the right toe of her shoe back and forth. Ida, she said, I have done something very much like that. Oh, I was so relieved because Miss W understood, and she was still sitting there next to me. All of a sudden, it felt like my heart was light and free and rising up and taking me along with it. And I only got about 2 inches off the ground, and then I landed right back down. Because when I looked at Miss W, full on, she was staring at the blue house, but her face was tired, and she looked about 10 years older. She was remembering, and then I was remembering too. And the sadness came back over me, and I knew I had to say something. What did you do about it? I asked. Miss W looked at her hands like there was an answer inside of them. Well, Ida B, she said, low and calm and sure, I just had to say I'm sorry. And that was it. That was all she said. All either of us said for the rest of recess. She sat there next to me, both of us looking out. After a couple of minutes, a piece rolled out from that place, and then the bell rang, and we both jumped a little. Miss W put her hands on her knees and got up and said, Well, let's get back in. Yes, ma'am, I said. We walked back to the room with her a little bit in front of me, and I could feel the breeze on my face, and I could smell peanut butter and summer flowers. Right away, I started planning. I could apologize, but I had not abandoned my resolve to avoid the pain or public embarrassment at school. That meant quick. That meant no friends, classmates, teachers, parents, brothers, or supermarket cashiers. It meant multiple escape routes and backup plans. Now, say there were 1 million ways Claire could say no, or I don't think so, to my sorry. And say 50% of those would be, that's okay, Ida, no problem. Well, out of those thousands and thousands of ways, Claire might give me, I could only think of 3. Didn't have any trouble thinking of responses. She could say, You're a snake, Ida B. Applewood. A slimy, green, sleazy snake. So go back to your hole and swallow your up. No, I had no problem of thinking of the bad answers. But you're never alone at school. Never except for a few seconds. Definitely not in the classroom, or the playground, in the office, or auditorium, or even the gym. Even in the bathroom, there's always a first grader with a little bladder in there. Only maybe a closet could be private, but that meant stealing a key and kidnapping Claire, closing the door without her screaming, somehow convincing her to not tell on, and being able to apologize. After considering my options, I decided that the bathroom was my best chance for success. Only 2 people can go to the bathroom at the same time. And if I could work it out, those 2 people could be me and Claire. And if that at the moment, no little kids are in the bathroom, I could have a chance to say I'm sorry. At the sink, or better yet, in the stall next to me where she didn't have to see me, I could say, Claire, who's that? Ida, what do you want? I'm sorry about the day in the woods. I could try, and then I'd be done. She could slam the door, flush the toilet till it overflowed, spit under. I wouldn't even care. I would do what I wanted to do. Hmm. So we are on chapter 28, and we have very little left. So that is interesting. Ida wants to apologize to Claire. She's thinking of a way she could apologize. Apologizing can be really hard, especially when we do something that hurts somebody else's feelings, and it's hard for us to acknowledge. But if you remember, we talked about different ways of apologizing before in class. We mentioned that there were 3 parts to it, right? First thing was apologizing for what you did wrong. Second thing was saying why you know that was wrong. And the third step to an apology was what are you going to do differently next time to make it better? How are you going to avoid doing that again? Because then it's an authentic apology. So, as we're home, as we're chit chatting with friends online or playing games, as we have a lot of feelings going on inside of us, very similar to Ida B, let's remember to be very patient with each other. Let's remember to take our time to, if we feel frustrated at a moment or sad or mad about something, and we do take it out on somebody else, which is very similar to what Ida B did with Claire when she was angry about her life changing. And a lot of us are going through a lot of changes right now in our life. Take time to remember But it's not what these other people did to us. It's not about your sister or your brother being upset right now or your parents seeming frustrated about life. But remember that we're all in this together and that we all want to remember to love one another and be patient with one another. And if we have to say sorry, then we'll just say sorry. Okay? So have a great day. And next time we'll go on to our next chapters of Ida B.